All right, so that's there.
Say it again. There you go. Yes. Uh-huh.
Welcome to St. Stephen's Episcopal Church. It's a pleasure to have you here for our second monthly evening lecture, and we're so happy to have Ann Caldwell with us to offer a presentation. Immediately following Ann's presentation, please join us for a reception in Stevens Hall. And Stevens Hall, so if you need to snake back this way to the left of our office, but there'll be folks who can help you find your way over there. And I want to turn things over to Allison Kalitsky, our special event coordinator, who really came up with the idea of this lecture series at St. Stephen's. It's a wonderful idea. And Allison, will you introduce you?
Yes, and I have to say, I think that it was Ann who actually gave me my first inspiration for this. The first time I saw Ann Caldwell was here in this church. It was for the Historic Charleston Foundation, and I had never seen her before. And I was just here working with St. Stephen's, and I have to say, it was such an amazing performance. It just intertwined history and personal anecdotes and song and story. It was just wonderful. And I just thought, what a wonderful thing this would be to give to our parishioners, to our community, to anyone who wanted to come. And here we are a year later, and I'm just so pleased that Ann is is going to share a gift with all of us. And now I'm going to read some wonderful things. These are things I did not know. Over the past 21 years, Anne has been making her living as a vocalist and performer. She has an incredible genre. She jazz, repertoire jazz, R&B, pop, gospel, spirituals. She is open for legendary recording artists such as Al Green in 2010. She's the director of the Magnolia Singers, which is a cappella singing group. She has written and produced spirituals. She is also the director of the Vocal Club. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, and she's currently the artist in residence at a youth development center in North Charleston. Currently, she is also she has 3 shows left at the Cannon Street Arts Center. It's 134 Cannon Street, and that shows a tribute to Paul Lawrence Dunbar. So if you like this, perhaps you'd like to see one of those shows as well. And without further ado, Anne, please.
Thank you. You kind of know your hot stuff when you serve food with it. Thank you for the invitation to be here. I've been recently watching some old Maya Angelou videos and kind of got some ideas about how to do stuff. I like Maya because she doesn't stand and recite. She's simply sharing stuff with you. And I've written a few things. One of these, and I'll get to the story here in a minute, is something I had been working on for a long, long, long time. And finally did it in the form of a song. Came up with this creature whose name is Zordak. The piece is called The View from Zordak. A creature landed on the earth. He came from outer space. He was sent here by his leaders to find out about this place. His mission was to gather information to take back, to report to all the teachers and the leaders of Zordak. The Zordakians had some problems that they could not understand. They thought that they could solve them by exploring a new land. On Zordak, they had jealousy, they had hatred, and despair. Degradation was arising and spreading everywhere. There was lying and cheating and stealing of a most outrageous kind. And ignorance and apathy had found some comfort in their minds. The Zordakian council knew that there was something they must do. Their solution was to send someone to spy on me and you. The Zordakian left a spaceship unbeknownst to those around. He wandered over all the earth without making a single sound. He stopped and watched and listened to everything that passed his way. But he was not impressed by what he had discovered on that day. He headed to his spaceship and decided to go back to his home and friends and family on the planet of Zordak. On the way back to his planet, he thought about what he'd say as he gave the report to the council of his findings on that day. He feared that they would not believe what he had seen or heard, and even entertained the notion that they thought he made up every word. He hoped that when he gave his findings to these mighty men, that they would not send him back to that big blue bowl again. When he sat before the council and stared into each face, he could tell that they expected encouraging news about this place. Little Zordy thought, and he thought, and he thought, and he thought some more. He gazed up to the ceiling and then down onto the floor. He breathed in deeply then exhaled, and rose upon his feet. He stood up straight and cleared his throat, and then began to speak. On planet Earth, they have jealousy, they have hatred, and despair. Degradation was arising and was accepted everywhere. There is lying and cheating and stealing of a most outrageous kind. Ignorance and apathy was very comfortable in their minds. What I have revealed to you is a very real and hopeless fact, that there is nothing on earth to help us with the problems of Zordak. Having been a mother for about 40-some-odd years, I started thinking back on my mother, and there's a gentleman here who actually approached me, and I had not had anybody ask me who I am like he did. He said, are you Johnny and Eloise's daughter? And that brings back all sorts of memories. And I told him he would have known the answer by the time I finished the story. But I want to read this one to you. I just found it. It was in a pile of stuff. That's how organized I am. It says, Mama used to say, it's short, lay down, get up, go over there, come back here. Stand up, sit down, go outside, now come back in. All day, Mama used to say, Mama used to say, all day, Mama used to say, Mama used to say. Put on your clothes, now take them off. Do this, now don't do that. Pick that up, put that down. Speak up, now hush your mouth. All day, Mama used to say, Mama used to say, all day. Mama used to say, Mama used to say, all day. Eat all your food, don't eat too much. Stay away from strangers, make new friends. Try new things, don't go too far. Have a good time, don't come home late. All day, Mama used to say, Mama used to say, all day. Mama used to say, Mama used to say, Mama used to say, all day. Now, telling stories is something that just kind of happened. I was doing some singing out at the Lutheran Retreat Center, just so you all think I didn't make this up. And a friend of mine says, we're going to have some Rhodes scholars come to listen to you speak. I'm going to listen to you speak. We want you to tell some stories. Tell stories. Stories about what? I don't know, just tell a story. So I figured the safest thing to do is to tell a story about myself, because nobody has any way of validating that. So I came up with something I call a journey of return. The journey of return is just for me a memory. It's going back from whence I came. It's just a little bit about who I am, some of the folks I know. Now I can stretch the truth a little bit because the folks I'm talking about are not here for one or two reasons. They're not in this room tonight, or they're not in this world anymore. So I can talk about them and stretch the truth just a little bit. When you come to Charleston, be ready to hear stories. Stand on the streets, in the restaurants, on buses, in the stores, and you will hear stories. If you need guidance, direction, information, money, you will get a story. If someone is about to rob you, they are going to tell you a story. Why is that? because it's a lot more interesting. I'll give you, for instance, Alice, you may have heard the story before, don't tell anybody. It's about my brother James. If you ask me, where is your brother? Well, I would tell you, shortly after Mama died, he left. He just went somewhere. We don't know where he went. He just went somewhere. We weren't sure where. And we weren't really concerned, because if you don't hear anything about anybody, you must conclude that they're all right. So we never heard anything from him. And then one day, we did. He called and said he was in Lawrence with my father. That's where he was living. So, okay, we were cool with that. And then he went missing again. And that's fine, as long as you don't hear anything, everything's fine. And then we finally got another phone call. And apparently he had found a job, found Jesus, found a wife, and he was happily living in Winston-Salem. Now, I could have easily said, my brother James lives in Winston-Salem with his wife. How interesting is that? So Southerners like stories because we like details. It's not enough to tell what we had for dinner. We have to tell you about everything on the menu, where we got it, and whether or not it was on sale when we bought it. And how much of it was left after we bought it. Details matter. I also like to sing a little bit, down a little bit. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Now, I was born in Denmark, South Carolina in the 1900s. You think I'd live long enough to say that? Now, my brother was born after me. We did not live in Denmark much longer after my brother was born. There is not much I remember about living in Denmark. By the time my sister was born, I was about 3 years old when she came along. If you listen closely, you will find that my story is not much different than yours. A lot of people tell me that. Nothing but joy in that land. Nothing but joy, joy, joy in that land. Nothing but joy in that land where I'm bound. Nothing but joy in that land. Nothing but joy, joy, joy in that land. Nothing but joy in that land where I'm bound. Now, Denmark, in Bamberg County, is a lumber railroad town. Bamberg sits in the middle of Collington, Allendale, Orangeburg, and Barnwell County. If you look at a map, it's sitting right in the middle. Now, my brother and I were born with the aid of a midwife. Most times, a midwife was somebody you knew well enough not to have to give any money to for their services. Mama's midwife was her mother, Julia Howard. Other relatives in Denmark were Grandma Missy, Aunt Lily, and her 6'12", that's what he looked like to me, husband. The man was a mountain with legs, and everybody called him Little Boy. Now there was Aunt Rosa, Aunt Emma, Aunt Rosa May, Uncle Frog, and Uncle Hezekiah. Now, I never met Uncle Hezekiah. I only heard stories about Uncle Hezekiah. I would have loved to have met Uncle Hezekiah because of the stories, but never met him. Now, not all of these folks were exactly kin. It was not quite clear to me where the bloodline began or where it ended. There were two very important bits of information you knew about everybody around that period of time. It was what was ailing them when they were living and what did them in when they died. It would always relate to a sickness. Sickness and food. Something about sickness and food. Now, folks you were close to, and y'all know this if you're born around my era, and you knew they weren't relatives, you addressed them as Mr. or Miss, and their first name. You did not dare call them by their first name without preceding it with Mr. or Miss. So we had Miss Babe, Miss Becca, Miss Margaret, Miss Mary, Mr. Shine. That's how we kind of shared that closeness with them without being disrespectful. I'm going home on the morning train. I'm going home on the morning train. I'm going home. I'm going home. I'm going home on the morning train. Now, my family, Mama, Daddy, sister, brother, and me, did not live in Denmark, as I've stated before. We lived in Charleston. And we would still make regular trips back to Denmark to visit the old people. That's what you did when you had young ones. And I think my parents did that so we could see what was going to happen to us when we got that age. The most profound thing I've heard my father ever say, now, I don't remember all of what he said, but one of the most profound things he said, I remember he sat down and looked straight at us. It was probably me and my brother. And he said, keep your eyes on old people so you'll know how not to act when you get that age. Now, Willard was the only child we ever saw in Denmark. He lived down the road from my Aunt Lily. He lived with his grandmother and had no brothers or no sisters or no mama or no daddy. That's what we thought. Now, when he knew we were visiting, he would come to Aunt Lily's house to play with us. Now, as children, we were not allowed to sit in the company of two or more older people. Not so much because of what we would hear, but what we would repeat. So we were sent outside. Now, one of my recollections of playtime with Willard was Willard, me, and my brother. I don't remember my sister in the picture. Willard showed up one day, and Willard showed up chewing tobacco. 12 years old, and he was chewing tobacco. And he was chewing it like it wasn't his first time. Well, we stood around for a while, and then Willard, naturally, when you chew tobacco, you gotta spit. So Willard would spit. He spat in the sand. Now, where we came from, there was sand and sand and sand on top of the sand. Really no sidewalks. So when Willard would spit in the sand, we got this brilliant playtime activity. My brother and I took turns covering up the spit. Willard would spit. My brother would cover it up. Willard would spit. And I'd cover it up. And we did this for a long time. And I was grown when I thought back on the moment and realized that it should have been disgusting. I had the pleasure of sitting in, when I finally got a real job, there was this gentleman that sat behind me at work, and he would chew tobacco, and he had this can. Yes, that was my impression. He sat it right underneath the thermostat at work. It was right there. And I remember having to change the thermostat and praying, don't let me look down. Because I'm sure I probably would quit the job, I'm not sure. Ain't no one knows sunrise, hardest day is going to end. Can no one know sunset if the next day will begin? Now, I don't know if Willard ever married or had children. I never knew Willard as a grown man. The last bit of information I received about Willard was that he had died in a war. In this world of trouble and woe, a member had better be ready to go. We look for things to be the same, but in the twinkling of an eye, everything can be changed. Can no one know at sunrise, hottest day is going to end? And no one knows at sunset if the next day will begin. Now, in Denmark, most everybody lived in a teeny, very small house. They had the basic space one needed to live, regardless of the size of the family. They had a bedroom, a kitchen, and a parlor. The restroom facilities were in the back of the house. That's where the serious business of waste removal took place. Now, passing of water was done in the pot under the bed. It had a little white pot with a red rim and lid on the top of it. You were not permitted to do anything serious under the pot, in that pot under the bed. If you wanted to take a bath, some of you know this, you did so in a big old wash tub hanging out in the backyard. I saw my uncle take a bath in the backyard. It was not a pretty sight. Now, I remember my sister's first encounter with the outhouse. Now, remember, she was born in the city. Red, you know that she was a city girl. She was born in the city. Now, this story is not exactly true, and it's close to being precisely false. But I thought it was a good story. I've read it past my sister. She thought it was funny too. Now, when she first saw it, she thought that it was a little barn. When I told her it was a bathroom, she wanted to know how a sink, a tub, and a toilet could fit in that little bitty barn. Well, I informed her that the tub was hanging out on the side of the house. The wash pan and the pitcher and the pump was on the back porch. And the only thing in that little barn was something that kind of sort of looked like a toilet. Well, she vowed she would never use it the whole time she was there. But then nature called, and she knew the rules when you had to go. So naturally, I had to go with her. She finally went out to the outhouse, which was down the path, and to the right, and there it was. Before we left, I tucked a roll of newspaper, rolled up, crumpled newspaper at the bottom, and we went on out. She stood in front of it, looked at it, and then went inside. You would think I was going to execute her. The look on her face as I shut the door. But she was fine. She sat down, and I waited. Now, any young people in the audience, in the congregation, there were no cell phones, no radios, none of that. We amused ourselves by singing. So I was inspired by the moment. Children, in the water, God gon' trouble the water. See that band all dressed in white, God gon' trouble the water. Look like the leader in an Israelite, God gon' trouble the water. Now after a while I heard her say, Sister, I answered, what? With a handle. I said, it broke off. And she went, oh. And then she got quiet again. And I didn't hear anything. See that man's all dressed in red, God gon' trouble the water. Look like the man what Moses led, God gon' trouble the water. And she said, Sister. I said, what? It's a family thing. I need some toilet tissue. So I took the roll of newspaper in my arm, opened the door, and handed it to her, and shut the door. Wait in the water, wait in the water, children, wait in the water. God gon' trouble the water. If you don't believe I've been redeemed, God gon' trouble the water. Come down with me to the Jordan stream, God gon' trouble the water. By this time I figured she should be finished. So I said, Sister. And she said, what? What are you doing? She said, well, I'm sitting here near about dark reading this old newspaper wondering when you're going to bring me some toilet tissue. That's a story all by itself. Now, Springfield Church sat in the middle of a cemetery where picnics were always in the cemetery. Cemeteries don't bother me much. I kind of know anything moving around in a cemetery isn't exactly dead. So I don't recollect going to Springfield Church on Sundays. We didn't live there. Whenever we visited, it would always be at night when we went to Springfield Church. I remember picnics and nighttime prayer meetings, we call them prayer meetings. Saint and sinner alike would come to the church picnics. There weren't as many graves then as there are now at Springfield. And so there was a lot more space to spread out and eat fried chicken and potato salad and watermelon and lemonade and jelly cakes. Now, I don't know if y'all know what a jelly cake is, There's a couple of women doing like this. My family can make a cake out of anything. I don't know where the inspiration came, but they could make a cake out of anything. And my grandmother was good at that. You bake a regular layer cake, and then you cut it down the side, the middle, whatever you call that. And then they spread either preserves or jelly in it, and then you stick it in the refrigerator and let it get cold. It is wonderful. So we had the jelly cake. At Springfield, there was no central heat or air conditioning. During church service in summer and spring, all the windows were open. Humans weren't the only ones that attended the nighttime services. If it could fly, walk, or crawl, it was inside the church with us. At Springfield Church, folks sang without any musical accompaniment. Kind of sort of where I kind of remember singing a cappella. They'll be singing over yonder, they'll be singing over there. When them singers get together, they gonna enjoy one another. Now, a song takes on a whole new meaning when people are clapping. I'll prove that to you right now. As soon as I make this microphone behave. They'll be singing over yonder, they'll be singing over there. When the singers get together, we gonna enjoy one another. When we lay down our life for the Lord, when we lay down our life for the Lord. See how it takes it has a whole new, it has a body in there. You can take that back to your churches and I want to. Now one time, and I remember this, one time during night service, everybody was singing. And all of a sudden, the lights went out. Now out in the country, there are no street lights. None of that. When it's dark in the country, it's dark in the country. It was as dark, and I've heard this expression before, it was as dark as black-strap molasses. I actually thought I had suddenly gone blind. You couldn't see, and I've heard this again, you couldn't see your hand for your face. It was just that dark. But it was weird. The singing did not stop. Everybody kept singing. Now when it went dark, somebody started singing. Guide my feet while I run this race. Oh, guide my feet while I run this race. Oh, guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Now, it's still dark, so somebody else takes a lead on the song. And they start singing. It's almost like they were praying for something to happen, for some light to come back. Light my path while I run this race. Oh, light my path while I run this race. Oh, light my path while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Well, about that time, the lights came on. And then it became a celebration. Someone else came up with another song. It says, shine on me, shine on me, let the light from the lighthouse shine on me. Don't act like Brenda. Shine on me. Yes, you can. Shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me. I can teach y'all that right now. Repeat after me. Shine on me. Shine on me. Shine on me. Shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse, from the lighthouse, shine on me. 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 Let the light, 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 let the light from the lighthouse, from the lighthouse, shine on me. Shine on me. You can take that one back to your church too. Now everybody came to the funerals, whether you knew the deceased or not. Now all there was at the funerals was preaching and singing. And the singing was call and response, almost like what we just did. One of a very popular funeral song is a song called This May Be the Last Time, or some might refer to it as Maybe the Last Time, I don't know. And I've seen this happen every single time the song is done. It ends up with a group of people marching around the church. Now, you don't have to do that today. I understand that. Because it was not unusual back when the families were taken apart. Just suddenly. They were there one day and they were gone the next. And they just gone. And they knew that that's a possibility. And the music the ancestors sang was the music that kept them focused and not going completely and totally crazy, because they could. Their lives were such that they could very easily have gone mad with depression. But the music kept us going. And the song says, this may be the last time. This may be the last time. This may be the last time. Maybe the last time, I don't know. Now those of you who are not familiar with the song, all you have to do is remember, maybe the last time, I don't know. That's all you have to remember. If you want to do more, you can. No matter what I say, maybe the last time, I don't know. Because that's what the prayer house and camp meetings was about. It wasn't somebody standing here doing some dissertation about Revelation 23 and 9. No, it was a conversation. They were talking, they were agreeing. So no matter what I say, you're going to go, maybe the last time, I don't know. Say it again. Maybe the last time, I don't know. Oh, I don't know, I just don't know. Maybe the last time, I don't know. Oh, I don't know, I just don't know. Maybe the last time, I don't know. Oh, this may be the last time. Let's sing. This may be the last time. Say it again. This may be the last time. Maybe the last time, I don't know. I'm sometime up, I'm sometime down. the last time, I don't know. Sometime I'm almost down to the ground. Maybe the last time, I don't know. Oh, this may be the last time. This may be the last time. This may be the last time. Maybe the last time. I don't know. Oh, good to have the choir here tonight. Now there was a piano, but nobody played it. Now, this is another one of those stories you can't prove. It's true or false. So Sister Glover, who was a new convert, said she knew how to play. We took her at her word. They had no reason to doubt her. She said that she was a little rusty and needed a week to practice on. So we said okay and gave her the week. In the meantime, word spread that Springfield's piano would finally be played. The day for Sister Glover to play was first Sunday. First Sunday was always packed anyway, on account of they served real wine for communion. The Rev always said that Jesus did not turn water into grape juice. So first Sunday service was packed ever since. But there were others who came to hear the piano played. When the Sunday came, Rev was as happy as a kid in a candy factory. He invited the presiding elder. That's like inviting the Pope. The anticipated Sunday had arrived. Sister Glover began to play. The sound coming out of that piano was enough to take your breath away. I have never heard anyone play the doxology like Sister Glover played it. Angels in heaven stood out and looked down. I looked over at the Reverend and saw tears flowing down his face like the waters of Niagara Falls. He was looking over at the presiding elder, who by this time was standing up with his mouth open. After she finished, you could hear cotton balls hit the floor. Sister Glover did not know how to play the piano. Nobody had the heart to tell Sister Glover not to play anymore. So the pastor, presiding elder, and all the members of the board met at a secret meeting and devised a plan that would keep Sister Glover from ever playing the piano again. By the next Wednesday midweek prayer service, the piano was gone. Elder Bridges told Sister Glover the sad news. Someone took the piano. Sister Glover said, "That's okay, Elder Bridges. I got a piano at home that I can use till you get another one." Now, my mother and father came to Charleston in 1955. There were sidewalks, paved streets, grass, cars, buses, trucks, and that big old Cooper River Bridge. You know, those of us here call it the Cooper River Bridge. Folks from all call it the Cooper River Bridge. For us youngins, it was like looking at a mountain. At the time, it had 2 lanes and was the fastest way to get to Mount Pleasant and back if you weren't in a hurry. Jim Crow laws made it hard for African Americans to live a decent life in the South. Jim Crow tainted everything. Movie theaters, hotels, parks, doctors' waiting rooms, bathrooms, water fountains, buses, schools, neighborhoods, and people. The Jim Crow laws led to the Great Migration. 6 million black folks left the South in search of a better life. Seems like we was always moving. When the sun comes back and the first quail falls, follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is away, for they carry the freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. Just in case some of you are not familiar, the drinking gourd was the Big Dipper, and the handle pointed to the north, the place of freedom. So they would follow that drinking gourd. The riverbank makes a very good road. Dead trees will show you the way. Left foot, peg foot, traveling on. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is a wing for the carrier of freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. My family stayed. We settled in at 781A East Bay Street. If you drive up East Bay Street, you will see the projects. That's where we were. It's still there. One common back porch and individual stoops in the front. Our unit faced the street, the Cooper River, and the bridge. This was to be home for a very long time. One unit had an eat-in kitchen, a living room downstairs, and upstairs was bathroom, I believe 2 bedrooms. Concrete floors all over. It was warm in the winter, summer, spring, and fall. We had box fans that used to circulate the warm air. We played under the bridge. There were huge chunks of broken concrete deposited under the bridge. That was our playground. There were 8 to 10 foot mounds of dirt deposited on the front of the units. Now we never knew why. For us kids, it was another place to play. On the Mount Pleasant side of the bridge was Riverside Beach. Now some musicians from off used to come and play at Riverside Beach. Somebody named Duke Ellington had come, and then another guy they called, I think he was royalty, Count Basie, would come with their big bands. Sometimes a couple of unknowns would also show up. Some guy named Louis Armstrong and another guy named B.B. King. And some others came to Riverside Beach. It was one of the places black folks would go to hear some so-so entertainment. Now, Mosquito Beach was located on James Island, on Salt Green Road. It was another place where black folks came together. County Hall. You remember County Hall? That's where a lot of black entertainers would come to the city to entertain. My parents had the date night. We were old enough to stay home alone because we lived near County Hall. And at the time, we'd never heard of this man before, but we heard my daddy talk about James Brown. Who is James Brown? So my father could give us a vivid explanation of James Brown. He would say, James Brown came out and he had this robe and he did his dance and then he'd fall down on the floor and then they'd throw this robe on because he was the king of soul. They'd throw his robe on him and he'd gyrate and then he'd get up and throw it off and he'd start singing again and then he'd fall down on the floor and then they'd throw this blanket, this cape on it and he'd start doing stuff and then he'd jump up and throw it off and then he'd fall down again. Put his thing on, do this again. And I asked my brother one time, you think Mom and Daddy paid a lot of money for that? When we were still little, In the summer, we would eat watermelon on the rind, not like I eat it now. Nice and cut up in little containers. Don't keep it rind. Mama would sit us on some Post and Courier newspaper in back room. And we could make as much mess as we wanted to eating that watermelon. I mean, the juice would be falling down our stomachs. We would only have on a pair of shorts because we were little. Nothing had developed then. We were little. And we could sit there and eat the watermelon, and then after we were finished, Mama would take out the newspaper. We'd go upstairs and clean up. Now, there were clotheslines that extended from one end of the units to the other. Families who could afford them had ringer washers. Our family had one. Mama would feed the soggy clothes, wet clothes into the front part of the washing machine, and we would stand in the back and catch it when they came out. Mama would do this, and we'd catch the clothes, and then we would stop doing that after it felt like work. Now, there is nothing to compare to the smell of sun-dried sheets and pillowcases. Some of us can remember that. I remember hearing street vendors. They would be selling fresh fruits, fish, and vegetables. And it brought back to mind when I had the privilege of being in the 1989/90 presentation of Porgy Best. I remember the street vendors, and I remember hearing that. Strawberries, strawberries, cherries, cherries. I remember that. Even guys sold popsicles in little carts on the street. My mother was a really, really good mother. You knew my mother. I'm not making that part. I mean, my mother was a good mother. And we were very well taken care of. We got new clothes and new shoes twice a year. Beginning of school and Easter. I did not mind my school clothes. I didn't. But I hated church clothes. I was a bit of a tomboy. My sister is the girly girl, still is. She likes fluff. You can tell I can live comfortably without it. I don't mind dressing up. I just don't like fluff. I still don't like, and I never dressed my child in it, unless my mother got a hold of her, the crinoline slips, the frilly dress, the lace socks, the patent leather shoes, and that awful little flower-covered white pocketbook. Church was in walking distance, and since we were old enough, we could walk to Sunday school all by ourselves. My sister and I carried our church money tied in the corner of one of Mama's handkerchiefs. My brother, I think it was a nickel for Sunday school and a dime for church, I think. Some of y'all might have had more money, but that was it for us. My brother carried his money in his coat pocket. Mama would come along later. Now, Daddy's lack of interest in church kept him from coming. Deck bells with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Why am I now singing that song? Because it's leading up to what we did at Christmas. I made that last part up. Christmas at our house was awesome. We didn't have a fireplace with a chimney. I figured Santa Claus had the keys to everybody's house that didn't have a fireplace, and he would just come in through the door. Our family custom was decorating the tree and helping Mama make fruitcakes. We helped by licking the bowl when she was done. and she had this huge plastic bowl. Don't know where it is now, but it was a huge plastic bowl. She'd fix up the batter, and then she'd dump all the stuff in. And at that time, you had to cut up everything. It didn't come all nice and chopped up in little plastic containers. She would have to sit and cut everything. Decorating the tree consisted of catching the imitation snowflakes that Mama would put on the tree. I don't know why she was obsessed with imitation snow. But she would throw it on the tree, and we'd stand at the bottom and catch it. And then we'd throw what we caught back up on the tree, and she'd throw some more, and we'd catch it at the bottom, and then we'd throw it back on the tree. And when that started to feel like work, we stopped. Now, because I was a bit of a tomboy, I never got the doll. My sister got the doll. Which would explain, years later, I would rescue orphan stuffed animals. I don't care if it was in the middle of an intersection. I would stop my car and go grab it and bring it back. I have 3 little items sitting on my porch. I call them my dirty little children. They have a home now. They're not homeless. The boys would take their skates and break them apart and take a 2x4 and make a skateboard. So you could hear this all up and down the back porch. So you took your life in your hands when you went out the back door. Grandma's hands clapped in church on Sunday morning. Grandma's hands played a tambourine so well. Grandma's hands used to issue out a warning. She'd say, baby, don't you run too fast. Might fall on a piece of glass. Might be snakes there in that grass. Grandma's hands. Now, even when we didn't go back home, we were asked, we were taken to visit the old people on Sunday. This was agonizing because we had to visit with our church clothes on. And I don't need to tell you how I felt about that. Grandma's Bert's joy was to see all of us dressed up. She'd like to see all of us dressed up. Babies were the only people allowed on her bed. The bed stood this high. Nobody else got in that bed but children. You were not declared human until you laid down in Grandma Bert's bed. There was no cooking on Sunday. Everybody would cook on Saturday. There were things we as children were not allowed to do on Sunday. Watch TV, listen to the radio, go shopping, nothing was open anyway. And we were not allowed to use a pair of scissors. I don't recall a pair of scissors in your hands on Sunday. Life just didn't seem so busy back then. And it was simple. Folks talked to each other. People, managed to know everybody's business without the aid of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Everybody always looked forward to Sunday because it was the day you paused, rested, ceased, quit. In other words, you stopped. Folks would sit on porches and stoops and fences and talk to each other. What a novel idea. The only car I could identify that went by was the Episcopal. And we'd get excited because there's an Episcopal. That's the only car we could identify, just sitting on the stoop. I have lived in Charleston a long time, and I've seen a lot of changes. Some I liked and some I didn't. Sometimes it's hard to believe how much has happened in such a short period of time. The old Quiver Bridge torn down, and the new Ravenel Bridge gone out. The old Sanders Clyde School torn down, and the new one built. Burt School torn down, and the new one built. The old McClellan Banks Hospital for African American doctors, nurses, and patients was demolished. Philip Simmons, the oldest blacksmith, died. He was in his 90s. I actually proposed marriage to him. He didn't say no, but then he didn't say yeah either. And Joe Riley served 40 years, and the park named after him. 9 firemen lost their lives in the fire, and 9 people massacred when they prayed. Living in the South, I always say that folks from up north is not for the faint of heart. Folks ask me every once in a while, have you lived in Charleston all your life? And I answer by saying, not yet. Used to be the only people who would come to Charleston were relatives from off. Now folks come from everywhere to see Charleston. They come back and they fall in love, when they take care of elderly parents, when they retire. Now it's the movie capital of the South. Or some people just come because they like Charleston. What kind of people live in Charleston? This is a true story told to me by my sister. There were 2 young girls who got on a bus and discovered that they did not have enough money to ride the bus. As they turned to get off, somebody hollered out, "Y'all ain't going to get off this bus." The folks on the bus rallied together to get the balance needed for these 2 girls, these 2 young girls, who were strangers, to stay on the bus. These were 2 white young ladies, and the bus was basically African American. We believe in doing unto others here in the South what we want done to us. If you are a visitor and you are lost, the natives here will help you. If you are confused and don't know which way to go, the natives will help you. If you don't know where to eat, or what to eat, or how to eat it, the natives will help you. If you got some extra money you need to get rid of, the merchants and shop owners will help you. If you want a glass of unsweetened tea, we can give it to you. We may not drink it ourselves, but we will give it to you. The definition of dying in vain is never doing anything good for anybody, be they family, friend, or foe. No true Southerner wants to die in vain. If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can help somebody with a word or song, if I can show somebody the right from the wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. Thank you.
Not burning.
That was a party.
Hanson Borough Commission nurse, so go to give a talk. Right when it's going to be published, that's one book published. This lady. I'll see you there.
Okay.
How have you been? I remember I made a old brick. Yeah. You came and took pictures at the college in Illinois.
Yes.
You and Crystal helped. You said help.
Yep, she's at the old slave mart now.
Yeah. The wheelchair on the back.
You're right. Feeling of some connection.
You're going to close all your windows. Okay. That's why you have those two big windows.
Is that right? Oh, okay.
I've earned my Dickle Veins carpal tunnel and for the X and the upper right hand corner that it is, begin to close your window. It makes me wonder how many of them you have open.
I don't know. But
Just start clicking on the X's and the upper right hand corner. And then subsequently close all windows down until you can see your best stuff. When's the last time you saw your best stuff? And you turn it off anytime soon?
and the friend behind me said, shut the whole thing down and then breathe under the hood. That I should have done.
Yeah, because see, folks tend not to clear their cache, and so it's just in stagnant position. It does require a restart. It's like the phone. As
It
much as
must
we
be
work on
nice
the
to
day.
know what you're doing. My sons get so upset with me that I don't bother to learn this stuff.
Well, see, that's because they don't have any patience anymore to walk you through it. And
That's true, they don't.
I have enough. My hands no longer execute, so I have to make sure that I gently lead others so that they can execute.
Really?
Dickle Veins carpal tunnel, quiver tunnel.
Oh, no, that's painful.
Yes.
I have a sky. Oh, that's painful.
Yeah, up to the neck. Yeah. That's why everything I drop these. That's why I'm using sinus to whatever else.
Well, good that you know what you're doing.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
fabulous. That's wonderful.
I was recycling them for years. I started arming and the hand started going. Then I was doing the tech stuff and then the hand started going some more. So now I just run them out.
Well, thank you for the advice. I'm going to try that.
Yeah, just keep closing, but definitely shut it
This was a
down.
lovely evening.
Yes.
Well, you educate. There's a southern thing. You got southerners. If you see us. So do white southerners have the same thing? They can tell them. They can tell them too. Because you're sitting on the soup, chatting, and I'm going to be in the grocery store. We don't have a short version of anything. Oh, it's always a long story. Just answer the question. See, that would be an argument.
So many stories. I mean, you just, every step you went, even Denmark. Even Denmark. When I go through Denmark, well, we were just in Denmark, but I went to
Remember to let me know. Okay, that's out of saying.
She knows it real well. So you can
it's like Ella Fitzgerald.
There's a bunch of people down there.
Such a great time. We really did.
My own little Johnny's daughter.
I think you were very good. Jim
And rightly so.
Reminded me of my
And rightly so. When a diva is here, diva is here.
This is my first time in this. We have the same problem with our parish house. It is so hard to get around to it.
and actually, my grandmother.
It's weird. You think the church is one of